Hey everybody, it's Tripl-L coming in to talk about Jujutsu Kai, chapter 149, The Death of Mei, or Perfect Preparation Part 2. So, this chapter we have a character dying. Do I care? No, not really. I talked about this on the live stream, but when it comes to the Jujutsu Kai characters, they're just not as striking as the Hero Academia characters. They're more people that I see, and it's like, oh yeah, that's pretty cool. But they're not really people that get me all that worked up about them. I mean, like at the end of the day, Mei doesn't really have all that much time allotted to her for screen time, and her plight with Maki, like even when you have her talking in this chapter, like she isn't really a person that really makes you feel great, right? Like these aren't in like not all these characters are super inspiring, and it's just an issue of they're not very impressionate. And so, even though Mei dies, on an intellectual level, I can appreciate what's going on here, but it just doesn't have that kind of impact. At the end of the day, when it comes to this chapter, I mean, I feel as empty about her death as I felt about Mekamaru, right? Like, it's all about build-up. Jujutsu Kai probably doesn't have really good build-up when it comes to characters. Like, I mean, look at the situation in Hero Academia, right? Hero Academia and the whole trader talk compared to, like, Jujutsu Kai's trader talk, where it just comes out of nowhere. You're like, I didn't even think to understand that there was a trader. It's all about the build-up. So for this chapter, I come in, this girl's dying, but I'm significantly more interested about the philosophy about twins. That was so much cooler. That was probably the most interesting thing here. But, actually, you know what? There was one person, Nanami. When Nanami died, I actually felt pretty bad about that, because Nanami's cool, but Mei's, like, annoying. Mei's pathetic. Like, even in this chapter, she admits it. So it's kind of hard to get into it, but I always appreciate the Jujutsu Kai philosophy, because that is pretty neat. And by the end of the chapter, Maki, who is significantly more interesting, unfortunately for her, I am more invested in her because I think she has a pretty nice ship with that other guy whose name, Okutsu? I forget his name. I'm not very good with Japanese names. But that's why I care about her. And at the end of the day, she gets like a super hardcore power-up, which is like nice. Because the good thing here is that if she goes on the next chapter on a rampage, there's one dick that I am absolutely ready to see go down. I would love to see that dick just... Anyway, let's talk about Jujutsu Kai. Now, Jujutsu Kai has a lot more dialogue than Black Clover, so I will take my time here. So the first page was Maki being dragged away, and just telling us why exactly Maki lost. And pretty much, it's like Maki treated him like a as a swordsman as opposed to a sorcerer. A swordsman traditionally does not have that many options. A sorcerer has more options. That's the gist of the conversation that we got there. The second page is interesting because of how he talks about this. And honestly, when I see this makes sense to me, what he's saying about it being the children that caused the guy to not get his place. I especially like his face when he says children must not hold their parents back. It's so interesting because I love this is such a deluded person. He's so narcissistic that him making that face is like, yeah, you know what? You really deserve whatever pain you get. What I thought was really interesting here was just saying that Naobito's curse technique didn't have much of a history, so that wasn't an important factor in a dispute. And so he rationalizes that it's only because of the quality of the children that he was not picked for the head of the household, which, like, it's so interesting. Like, when I see these sorcerers and the way that they're fighting for position and all that, it feels like they're just kind of fighting for scraps. I mean, yeah, sure, you get to have a bunch of power, but I don't really see you guys using it in all that many impressive ways. If anything, Mei, is that her name? Well, you know who it is. The one who's really obsessed with money. If anything, she's the one who I think is like super impressive, super influential. I think she's doing it right, but these guys stuck in the past are just... It really feels like they're fighting for scraps, so it's just kind of ridiculous to see how far this goes. I especially like that Mei tosses something back at him saying that holding each other back is a virtue in the country, and it's like, nice bird, nice. Anyway, page 4 is pretty useless. It's just an establishment page. Page 5 is this guy talking down heavenly restriction, physically gifted. This guy's a purist. He's like, yo, we use curse energy. We are sorcerers. You just got some strength. Whatever. It's not even that great. So I like how salty he was. And what's really interesting here is just he's making fun of the heavenly restriction, he's making fun of it because Maki ends up being not that great. But at the end of the day, he is terrified of the heavenly restriction when it comes to the physical empowerment because of the other person that he had in his mind. So I like that setup. I like the setup of calling her strength nothing special, because that strength is ultimately what came back 100 times to hit him. Page 6 to 7 is finding out Maki's still alive and having a really interesting mouth-to-mouth with her sister. Anyway, on page 8, when this woman started talking about her curse technique, I had to go look it up on the wiki, because I was just like, I don't even remember. I just know you have a gun. But, you know, thank God she just gives me the information there too, and I understand it, right? Like, when she says that I'm probably going to die because I can't make anything big or complicated, it's like, alright, yeah, given the way Jujutsu Kai works, I understand. That was solid. And then the more interesting part is where she's talking about the twins thing. To gain something, you must offer something. I'm not talking about a binding vow. In the same way suffering makes us stronger, for us twins, that rule doesn't always apply. After all, curse techniques treat identical twins as one individual. That was interesting. I didn't know that. I didn't know curse techniques treat them as one individual. So if they do, if someone had like a curse technique where, you know, it applies damage to a person's soul, it says that both of them would get hurt at the same time if they weren't in the same vicinity. That's what I read from that. So I thought that was really interesting. And the trick here comes in understanding where exactly the rule doesn't apply, and it's specifically with that heavenly restriction. But let's go into page 10 and 11. On this page, Mei points out that even if Maki tried to get stronger, there was no point because Mei didn't want to get stronger. And it's like, oh my god, you're the worst. But we get her character. What it ultimately means is it's like a counterbalance. Because they were the same person, but from the standards of cursed energy, what ended up happening was Maki's desire to grow stronger was neutralized by the lack of it. And so Mei's lack of training was holding back Maki. And then she goes on, if you don't have a curse technique, but I do, then there's no point. So again, it's the same thing. Because Maki doesn't have one, like it's just, if you imagine it as just a single number, like 1 and -1, right? And you add them together, it's a neutralization. This might also be why Mei doesn't have that great of a cursed energy reserve. It's ultimately because of the interplay that's coming through. And in terms of the interplay, it makes a lot of sense if you take into account that it might not be the neatest thing. This is like in programming when you feed a weird variable into a function and it's trying to do its best with the variable you fed in, but it wasn't the variable intended to be applied to those rules. So from that perspective, it kind of makes sense to me. Anyway, on page 11, she ultimately tells Maki that she's going to take the cursed energy and everything away from she's going to take the cursed energy and everything away with her, which is good because now the heavenly restriction is specifically creating a situation where you don't have cursed energy. Because of that, we will give you super hardcore strength. But the glitch is, wait, what? It says your soul does have cursed energy. This isn't working fully. So the cursed energy and trying to reconcile those two realities is where Maki ultimately ended up being severely limited. Anyway, Mei dies. She leaves a feather. I don't understand the significance of the feather. Maybe if I go back into the chapters, I can see the significance. But the imagery for this chapter didn't land with me only because I'm a bad reader for Jujutsu Kai. Anyway, on page 13, big thing that I want to point out here is this is a mistake. This is not the eye that is supposed to be open. That's a pretty big mistake. It was really interesting. I can see what happened. Drawing the other eye in the spot where it should have been would have been a little bit harder, but drawing it there makes more sense. But yeah, no, that's a pretty gnarly mistake, all things considered. Like, even if you look at the comparison images, the scar is supposed to be on the right side, not the left side. Page 14 is the uh-oh, I screwed up page. And page 15 is the uh-oh, that reminds me of something I don't want to think about. And then page 16 is the full-on, the second coming of a really terrifying person. Which is great. This guy was able to do so much damage with relatively little that I cannot wait to see what this cursed tool, born of someone's sacrifice, is going to do. I can't wait. I hope the next chapter is Naoya getting like destroyed. Page 17 is Maki's dad freaking out. about to get throttled by physical strength. I don't even feel that I don't even feel that bad. Yeah, like blazing courage. Yeah, really really courageous what you did, tossing your daughters into a room full of monsters just because you couldn't handle your ego being crushed. Anyway, page 18 is just a full-on merciless attack. I'm not even gonna complain. And maybe in other manga we could say like, wow, you really sliced off your dad's head like that. Like that's rough. How do you feel about that? But it's like, honestly, the Zenin, horrible people. Best to just get rid of all of them. Best to get rid of like the really toxic ones. Like, come on, let's move into the 21st century here. Any Hoosers. Maki ends the chapter off saying, let's get started. I really hope this is going to be full on the destruction of the old guard of the Zenin, because they're dicks. They're conspiring to hurt Megumi. Megumi's a cool guy. Maki knows that. I'm ready to see stuff go down. And I do hope we get to see where exactly the cursed tools are. Oh, and man, I really hope I get to see Naoya cry, man. That's what I'm really hoping for. That's going to be so good. Any Hoosers. Overall for Jujutsu Kai, I think that was a pretty cool chapter. Of course, the thing that really gets me is the philosophy. I think that's pretty clever. I understand it. I can make myself understand it. Not the most unreasonable thing I've ever seen. It's just a matter of balancing and weird rules being applied because they couldn't really understand what was going on. And in terms of the imagery for the father, I think was really good. I think they did a really good job just showing the absolute terror, and his face was really expressionate. I think that made the chapter significantly better. But yeah, that's my thoughts on chapter 149 of Jujutsu Kai. Ultimately, I came for the philosophy. May rest in peace, but yeah. Heck, man, I think I had more of an emotional response seeing Maki's dad die than I had May died. But that's just how that thing goes. I can't wait. This is gonna be so cool. This woman's gonna be a physical disaster. Oh my god, it's gonna be so awesome. Anyway, guys, let me know what you thought down below. Until next time, I hope you have an absolutely great day.